Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our hosts, Sri Raj Gopalan, Peter V.S. Bond, and Brian Gildenberg explore how brands and retailers engage consumers in an increasingly digitally driven world. And now, here are the CPG Guys. Hello and welcome to the CPG Guys podcast, where we explore the omni-channel digital journey of brands and retailers. I'm your co-host, PVSB, and today I'm joined by my dear friend and the newest addition to the CPG Guys enterprise. He's the founder of Confluencer Commerce and host of the upcoming podcast series, CPG Guys Fast Forward. Rethink Retail named him a top retail influencer for 2023. Of course, I'm talking about Brian Gildenberg. Hey, Brian, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey there, Peter. And rumors that Rethink Retail or rethinking that decision are entirely exaggerated.
If they are, then they're going to rethink naming me to that list too. I think it's going to be
They're not rethinking the decision to make you one of the top 100.
No. I think it's a package deal. If one of us goes, we both go.
Nah, it's me, you, and 98 of our closest friends. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for joining me today. Really looking forward to this conversation. Glad to have you rounding out, making us a threesome. Now we can't get that table for two anymore, but that's okay. It's just more the merrier. Before we get to our guest, I want to remind our audience to visit cpgguys.com. We've got a really great website. We've got episodes that are organized by different topics like retail, media, and loyalty. And you'll find links to all our podcasts on major platforms, even minor platforms. And if you're not already doing so, please follow us on LinkedIn, where we publish new content each and every day of the week, including weekends. And if we were the Beatles in Britain, it would be 8 days a week that we would publish content. We're also very proud to sponsor, formerly Next Up. They were previously known as Network of Executive Women. They have a mission to advance all women in business and to promote gender equality in the workplace. We are very supportive of this particular mission, and we're very happy to be part of the Next Up community. The digital liner notes of this episode contains hyperlinks to our website, our LinkedIn page, and of course, our landing page on Next Up. So, Brian, let's get to our guest.
Let's do it.
A successful career path is paramount to just about everyone who listens or even, frankly, hosts this podcast, right? This is particularly true in challenging economic times and when consolidation and acquisition are occurring in our industry. Managing the roles you take and the skills and experiences they deliver to make you more marketable for future advancement can be a very daunting effort. Our guest today comes from the CPG retail world and has just authored a new book called Grow, The Essential Guide to Getting Promoted, in which you as a reader will find tips and best practices to incorporate into your daily work life to help you stand out and get promoted. Imagine that. These are the techniques that helped him move up the ranks from an entry-level position all the way up to vice president at one of the largest beverage companies in the world. These are strategies that worked extremely well for him, and he believes that they are strategies that will work for others. Please join Brian and me in welcoming to this podcast, Randy Ornstein. Randy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Randy, we're really excited to have you with us to talk about this because we talk a lot about our industry, but we're also very focused on the people who listen to our podcast and their ability to learn educationally from our podcast, but also to learn about how to carry their careers forward. It's not just about what they learn, but they learn how to do things. And I think that's why we're very excited to have you here. Before we get to the questions we've prepared for you, why don't you give our audience some details on the book that I just mentioned, what formats it's available in, and particularly where they should look to find it on sale?
Yeah, certainly. The book just launched actually in mid-January, and we're now live on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, porchlightbooks.com with paperback version and ebook, $16.95 and $8.95 respectively. And coming soon, we'll have an audio version in March. I have a professional doing the audio. It will not be me, unfortunately.
Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, it will. I wish that costs a little too much money, but love his voice. But audio version coming in March on those same channels. And so if you want a hard copy, an ebook, an audio, you'll be able to find it on those 3 sites. And hopefully in trying for airports is a quick read as you're on an airplane, or looking at college universities. I think it would be a great book for graduation gifts or graduates about to enter the workforce.
Well, thank you for that, Randy. What we're going to do is in the digital liner notes of this podcast episode, we'll have hyperlinks to both the paperback and the ebooks to make it very easy for people listening to this podcast to find your book in the format that's appropriate to them. And we'll also have links to your LinkedIn profile so that people get to know a little bit about you. So I'm going to kick it off with our first formal question of the day. Randy, why don't you start by sharing with us a bit about your professional background to kind of show our audience you've got bona fides in the space that they are most likely involved in, which is CPG retail, and give us a better understanding of the expertise that you've developed.
Yeah, certainly. I have 22 years experience in the beverage CPG space. It's what I know best. I started my career working for IRI, with my client being Anheuser-Busch. So started more of my career on the analytical side, building a lot of reports, analyzing a lot of data, competitive data for retailers all over the country, and then had the pleasure and opportunity to work for Anheuser-Busch for then 15 years. And that's really where I would say the bulk of my career has been, and where I came up with the idea for the book. I was promoted 7 times at Anheuser-Busch. Started more on the category and space management side in beautiful Bentonville, Arkansas, working with Walmart and Sam's Club on many roles, and then eventually led our category management and space management team at Anheuser-Busch for all of our national grocers and drugstores like Kroger and Safeway and Target and Meijer and Publix and H-E-B and Walgreens. And then after the bulk of my career on the category side, I switched to sales, where I then was the VP of sales for Walmart and Sam's Club at Anheuser-Busch, which was AB's #1 client, and a huge step in my career to go all category and then to sales, and not only sales, but running our largest business. One fun fact there, when I was talking to my boss at the time who offered me that job, I was a little hesitant of moving into a huge sales role like that, as I had not had prior selling experience for a supplier. And really his main thought and direction to me was, Randy, you actually have been selling, just in a different way. I was selling more of the category approach of how to grow beer categories for different retailers, but in using data effectively to sell. And that's really what took me then to manage that business. And after 9 years of working with Walmart, I was ready for a change. It's an amazing account to work with, but very stressful. And I just wanted something different, and had the opportunity to then take more of a different path at AB. I launched our non-alcohol business unit, and we partnered with Starbucks to launch Teavana Iced Tea. We acquired Highball Energy as well. And so built out a non-alc business unit within a beer company, which is tough. And then my last role there was leading the Beyond Beer division, which was everything but beer. So our Spike Seltzer brand, which is now called Bon and Viv, Babe Wine, Cutwater Spirits, basically any wine, spirit, non-alcohol brand, which is a lot of the growth engine of alcohol. And then it took a change. I went from the supplier community to the retailer community, but really on the e-commerce side, and joined Gopuff, where I'm at today. And I've been there 3.5 years, leading the beverage merchandising team, the alcohol and non-alcohol drinks across Gopuff, Liquor Barn, and Bevmo. Those are 2 chains that we have purchased. And it's been an amazing ride, a very fast-paced company. It's all about innovation. It's trying to get the product into the consumer's hands in under 30 minutes. And it's just been amazing. And so that's my career, 22 years in beverages, 9 promotions. And that really propelled me to write the book that we're talking about today.
Excellent. And then, so that's the basic setup for what got you to write the book. And I just want to say it's great to see you again. And having watched, I think, most of your 9 promotions, while I had a grand total of 0, I'm thrilled that you wrote this book, because if nothing else, I'm looking for Peter to promote me to executive cook and bottle washer for the CPG guys. I'm hoping. But was there a catalyst that really prompted you to actually do the work of writing the book down? Had you been thinking about it for a while? And then how did you bring it to reality? I mean, you're working a big job at a startup, which is not necessarily the kind of thing that screams, wow, I got time on my hands. So how did you bring it to life?
Yeah, definitely not a lot of time. I never thought of myself as an author growing up. I was never that strong in English. In high school, I was more math forward. I'm not even an avid reader of books. I do periodically read business books, but I'm not the kind of person that's reading every week. But I always had a desire to teach others and to build connections and being a sounding board for colleagues, whether they're in my department or team or others. One of the catalysts I would say is at Anheuser-Busch, they had a sales development program where every year they hired, a bunch of college graduates to go into a 6-month training program. And at the end of the program, there was a graduation, and I was periodically asked to give a keynote speech or a commencement speech. And I would always just present one slide of, here's 5 tips that I use to grow at Anheuser-Busch. And one would be like, data is power, and this is how you use data effectively. And one would be persistent. And over the years, some of those people that listened to me would come up to me at different meetings saying, Randy, I still remember your tips that you gave me like 5 years ago. And it kept happening. And it finally stuck that I eventually started building out those tips into 7 or 10. I would present it to my team every 6 months or a year to remind them. And then just one day I was driving and it just came to me, I should now formulate this better and share with the world. It's actually been a 5-year project of writing this book. I would say the first year was me more of writing notes. I was living in Montclair, New Jersey, commuting into New York City at the Anheuser-Busch office in Chelsea. And so I had about an hour train ride every day. I was writing notes, and my wife then got involved, Haley, who read my notes and said, this is garbage. Let me make it better. And her psychology background, she actually is the co-author of the book and on the cover, and she started taking over and was the true writer of the book, but using all of my experiences and thoughts. And so she's been amazing. She's also been helping read a bunch of business books to validate the research and what I said. And we would work nonstop on weekends or nights to basically build out the chapters, build out the content, work with our publisher on the editing process, which took a while. And it's been a fun ride, but it's been a chaotic ride. I don't know if we'll write another book, but it's definitely great to see it coming and now being launched after so many years of, I would call it frustration, but now excitement, seeing it on paper and now seeing people actually read it.
It's awesome. Sounds like we need a follow-up episode with Haley.
One of the things you got to do, Randy, is get that filed into the Library of Congress, because then it really is official, right? So thank you for the background and kind of what led to the impetus. I'll also make mention of the fact that what I love you talking about your early career is you started in space management and then moved over to IRI. I started in space management myself at a manufacturer at Hart's Pet Care, and then I moved over to IRI as well. So we have very much that in common in our background.
Yes. Well, that's why I'm wearing these glasses, because staring at small numbers on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Now I have to write a book, Brian. So we put that on our list of things to do. We'll have to figure out what it's about.
What's Haley doing for the next couple of years, Randy?
Yeah, can we borrow you? Is your wife busy? Can we? Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get to what your book involves and the advice you're giving. Why don't you start very basically? Why do you believe that promotion is honestly within everyone's reach?
Yeah, while the book is titled Grow, the Essential Guide to Getting Promoted, I believe that the book's content focuses on helping the reader improve their performance at work, like every day. And if you're a strong employee, you're more likely to get promoted. It's not like you have to do big, grandiose things. It's your daily work will help you wow your boss, wow your leadership, wow your peers. Most promotions that I've received throughout my career are usually also happen outside of a formal application process or interview process. It's usually the management's already figuring out who would take the next job that's open, and they already have like a list of candidates based off of historical data and of historical reading and seeing all those employees during different meetings or different engagements. And so it's amazing. I haven't interviewed really for any of my promotions. They were usually a call from my boss saying, hey, guess what? You're now moving to this job. Do you want it or not? And Obviously, I said yes every one of those times. And so I think it's more about not waiting until you're ready for a promotion or wanting a promotion, but it's start making sure that you are promotable. And I believe that most people have the desire to be promoted. You just have to prove it. And the book shows like all of the tips that I did to get promoted. Not one tip got me to where I'm at today, but it's a bulk of many, many small things and many big things. And I think it's just the desire to learn and get better. And if you get better and showcase yourself, you'll move up the corporate ladder.
Yeah, let's drill down a little bit into that the daily work piece, because I think in the book you refer to that as everyday excellence. And let's talk a little bit about how that, from your perspective, and in your specific experience, how that contributed to promotability. Like, what are some of the examples of the types of work that you did that you really feel like put you in that promotability category?
Yeah, I think, a lot of these are sort of basic things. Like when you're in meetings, whether it's with your boss or peers, like don't be a ghost and just sit there as a silent person. You should be speaking up and adding value, adding ideas. I just actually had a team meeting with 24 of my teammates 2 hours ago, and I'm constantly asking the team questions like, hey, do you have any ideas? And some people are always speaking up, and I recognize that, and others I haven't heard from in months. Like I know who they are, but they're not adding value or like even asking a question or a comment. And that really, I believe, is important because I recognize that. I think another thing is we all get a ton of emails. It's nonstop phone calls. It's making sure that you're managing your messages appropriately and knowing that, like, I know that when my boss sends me a note or calls me, I pretty much stop everything and focus 100% of my attention on answering that, because my boss is probably my biggest advocate and the one person that's going to help me also move up the corporate ladder. If I don't have his or her buy off, then it's going to be very hard for me to move. And so I prioritize requests, emails or calls from my leadership team or from my manager. And then the last I would say is, which maybe helps from my data background, is study for success. And it's really about knowing your business and knowing your numbers. And so every week at Gopuff on Mondays, we go through each of the team's department sales. We go over beer, wine, spirits, and drink sales to see what's going on. I expect the team to present back on, what worked, what didn't. And then if I call them up during the week or send them a note on a particular stat within their business, they should be able to either answer that right away or get back to me very quickly on what that answer is. And that means that you've built all of your reporting capabilities where you could easily pull up a report or a website or however your data is compiled in your company to answer roughly 90% of the questions pretty quickly. Others might take longer, but it's really about knowing your performance. If you happen to be with your CEO in an elevator and they ask you, are you meeting your KPIs or are you meeting your goals? You don't want to say, oh, let me get back to you. You should be able to deliver that right there and portray that you actually know the business that you're either selling or being sold to.
Excellent.
I want to remind our audience that Brian and I are speaking with Randy Ornstein, author of the terrific new book, Grow, The Essential Guide to Getting Promoted. Randy, you made mention of team quite a lot in your last response. How does helping your team succeed lead to your personal success from your experience? What are kind of like the key components of there's a value proposition to making sure your team succeeds?
Yeah, I really believe that you can't do anything without a team. There's very few. I've never worked in a situation where it was just me and I had no other help or no direct reports or nothing like that. I always had like a team environment wherever I worked. And it's in sports. You're only as strong as your weaker player. Like you all have to row together and build and grow together. And if people on your team are not succeeding, then it could bring down the team. And so, I try and do what I can to make sure that my team has everything they need to be successful. If there's a roadblock in a technology or an issue, we'll try and solve how can we get that technology fixed or how can we get that answer. There's a lot of departments in our company, so where could they go for the right answer? I also think that me personally, and I portrayed in the book now, is I use the methodology we versus I. And so when I hear someone present on a topic and every word out of their mouth is I'm like immediately turned off, because 9 times out of 10, that person didn't do 100% of the work. They might have had some of the ideas, but other people supported them. And so what I focused on for 10 plus years is using we versus I. And so you'll hear me as I'm talking about different projects, like we did this or we did that. I even will go through my emails that I send, and before I hit send, I'll change the I's to we's, just in case I actually wrote it, just to show that this was like a team environment that completed this project. And I really think that that goes a long way. It shows that you're able to collaborate effectively and work in a team. And it's something that I valued significantly, and I portray that with my team all the time.
Awesome. And let's talk a little bit about some of the moments where you've gone above and beyond and how you would think about how above and beyond helps in your career progression.
Yeah, I think that there's usually a job description for every job out there. And when you interview, you're trying to see if you could hit that job description. And what I believe is that you should not just do what the details of your job are, but do more. How do you make that job better? So when the person takes over that job, when hopefully you're getting promoted, it's already excelled at another level. We always want to leave the job that we were just in a better place. And so I'm always asking the team, what else can you deliver outside of your normal job descriptions? And one of those is best practices. It's something that I'm pushing all the time. I expect that the teams that I work with are presenting and bringing new ideas, best practices that will save our team time, money, resources. It could be as simple as redoing an Excel file to combine 2 into 1. It could be another bigger project of reducing spend on a project that we were working on. It could be working with a supplier to grow or to decrease out of stocks within our stores. We really need people to step up and bring ideas to the table of things that will actually make monumental change to the business, and not just go on and do their daily lives and just wait until someone actually tells them to do something. Like, I like the proactive nature of people bringing ideas to the table, and then not just bringing the idea, but saying, hey, here's what I did, and here's what the results are of that best practice.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the things I always used to test for in interviews was people's ability to self-generate the identification of a problem and the solution for it. It was always one of my favorite skill sets in people as I sought to get them promoted, since I was never getting promoted. So I'm trying to help.
Yeah, definitely a common interview question for me.
So Randy, how do you recommend readers of your book invest in their futures? And particularly, how does mentoring or even sponsoring, which I think is a step beyond mentoring, really play a role in this effort?
Yeah, I think mentorship is really important. And I've had lucky to have great mentors throughout my career. And I also have mentored different individuals. And it's usually not through a standardized process. At Anheuser-Busch, we once had a mentor program, then it went away. And at Gopuff, there's not really a formal process. And it's really up to you to find the people that you look up to, build a relationship with, and ask them, hey, would you be my mentor? And when you have that relationship, then it's up to you to then meet with that person, call it on a monthly basis, or be able to call them at any point. What I really like about the mentorship program, whether you're a mentee or a mentor, you're able to talk to things that maybe you wouldn't even say to your boss, even more personal things that you need advice on, maybe when you're talking to your boss, or about our employer review process, or even about things that you could do to build connections in other departments. And it's worked for me. It doesn't have to be actually a mentor in your company you work with. It could be externally in another company, or just a friend that you've met throughout your career. I also think that one other thing I would say in investing in your future is facilitating friendships. And I believe that, like right now in our virtual environment, we're fully virtual. 90% of the time, the team that I work with on the merchandising team is only meeting with the merchandising team. They're only meeting with the people that are on the org chart in their department every day. They're not meeting with other departments in our organization. because you'd have to set up a virtual Zoom meeting to then meet with that individual. It's not like you run into them in the hallway or at kitchen or in the bathroom or in the stairwell like you would in an office setting. And so the teams, the individuals, I highly recommend you facilitate friendships with people outside of your department and get to know them, understand what they do, and then learn all the different aspects of your team, because you're not, very few people stay in the same department throughout their career. You might be in sales today, but you might be in marketing later. You might be in supply or operations or finance or engineering. And so you want to get to know other people that will eventually look for you as like, hey, I have an opening on my team. Are you interested? And that might help you get to the next level.
Perfect. And then our last formal question is, what are some of the big personal KPIs that you recommend readers focus on to ensure that they're promotable?
Yeah, I said a few of these already, but I think one is speaking up in meetings. I think especially in a virtual environment where there might be 10, 15 people, don't be shy, speak up. Try in every meeting you're in, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, even if you say a comment, just get off mute and say a few words, say a sentence, ask a question, or give an idea. I would recommend that in every meeting you're in, just so people know that you're there, you're adding value. Sometimes then hopefully you're leading these meetings as well. I would also say that in terms of like best practice sharing, idea sharing, every month be vulnerable and like give your manager a new idea. It could be a very small idea or a big idea. And maybe it's during your weekly one-on-ones that you might have, or just a random email to that boss saying, hey, I have an idea about how to grow sales in this metro. The third personal KPI, I actually just said in the prior question, I really think try and meet someone new in your company, like once a month. Reach out to someone. Maybe you're in a team meeting and there was a person new that you didn't know. I try, and when there's a new leadership member joining our team, I always make an effort to reach out to that person and try and schedule a one-on-one with them like the first few weeks of their job, just so they know what I do and how I could effectively work with them. And so getting to know the new hires or getting to know someone outside of your department, I believe would be key to helping you grow.
Randy, I loved what you said about getting to know people in your company, new people that are joining. For me, it's always about the network. The network will pay dividends, but you have to invest in it. You have to get to know these people. You have to keep connected to these people, because you never know when, to your point, they're going to be in a position to say, I know exactly who can help me with that. And maybe it's a job, or maybe it's where you can lend some advice and counsel. And that, again, leads to other opportunities in the future. So I commend you on recognizing the value of your network in building out your career. It has been instrumental in mine. I can honestly say that the last 5 or 6 jobs that I've had came exclusively from my network. They were not from me applying to a job that was posted on a website or anything else like that. So I'm a big proponent of using your network and just remembering that it is a journey, not a destination. So you don't meet someone and then you ignore them.
Yes. And who knows?
Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say it. Someday the category management person you meet on the Walmart team may turn into a famous author. You never know.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better, my friend.
Living proof of the power of the network right here.
Exactly. I want to remind our audience, please visit cpgguys.com, where you will find all of our content. And if you think your company has some thought leadership to contribute to our ongoing community discussion, drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com. Maybe you can join us on this podcast for a future discussion. And while you're at cpgguys.com, on the navigation bar, go up and give us a rating and review. We want your feedback, and we want to design this podcast to be meaningful to you, because you're the listener, you're the person who consumes it. And if you do that, then we will have accomplished our objective. And thank you, of course, to the 19,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. We're so grateful for the fact that you trust us in both educating and entertaining you. Randy, thank you for taking the time to walk us through the key components of your book. I personally will recommend this to people obviously early on in their career in particular, and he's holding up. We're going to have an image of that in the promotion that we put out on LinkedIn, in addition to hyperlinks in the digital liner notes of this episode. But we're really grateful for you taking the time to stop by the podcast and tell us about your new book. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, and great to do this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Good to see you, man.
All right, Brian, this is the part of the episode where I ask you to come back with what are some of the salient summary points that you found most curious from Randy's conversation with us.
Well, as befits an excellent communicator, Randy did a good job of summarizing them already. So in the KPI piece around speaking up, reaching beyond your department, all the good KPI stuff. But I think that the couple of themes that came out, one was the consistency with which promotable people do the things that enable promotion, right? It's less about the grand gesture, the big thing, the singular project win, and it's really more about the everyday, whether it's doing the everyday work with excellence or going above and beyond. But even the examples that you were using about going above and beyond, they were fairly everyday in nature, right? And it's about the consistency. And as a once great but now canceled movie director once said, 90% of life is just showing up and consistently being there with excellence. I think is a really important part of that. So, I like the we, not I. There is no I in promote, right? So I think that's a really good idea for people as they seek to move themselves up the ladder, is to realize that any role that's going to go up the ladder is going to require more of a we focus and less of an I focus. I mean, that's almost, the simple math is as you get promoted, you're responsible for people that are going to value your we skills, not your I skills, which is great. I think the last point, which really struck me, was in your personal history, not the book discussion, when you talked about getting the Walmart sales job and that, your boss explained to you that you were selling in a different way. And I think so often for people that I've promoted over the years, I've had to have that same conversation with them about telling them they're ready for a role that they didn't think they were ready for because the skills they had built paralleled to a promotable role. And there's a couple of things in there. One is really make sure for me that you've got a really good handle on what your skills inventory is and how translatable or portable those skills are. And second, and I think this is particularly true for, the 51% or so of the population that isn't represented by the people on this podcast, but that notion of I'm not able to do this because I haven't done it before, which can manifest as confidence, imposter syndrome, whatever. Knowing your portable skills and having confidence in that, I think, is a really important part of putting yourself in a place where promotability becomes important. So I really like that part of it. And it also made sense. I mean, selling to Walmart is really, in the end, selling a category growth story. That's what you're doing there, right? So the skill, and I think as a leader, understanding people that have translatable skills that are promotable in nature, and then identifying the skills that allow you to put them on that track, I think is important. So that was great. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I did too. And the only thing I'll add to that is at the beginning, Randy mentioned that his wife, Haley, helped him with this book. In the preface, she made mention of the fact that when AB was acquired by InBev, that the fundamental mechanism for getting promoted shifted from a seniority-based system of relationships to what you knew and what skills you brought and capabilities you brought. And that was fundamental for Randy to be able to move up in the organization. I thought that was a critical component.
I think we could have had a whole 45-minute conversation about how different the experience is getting promoted working for InBev than it was working for another type of organization. That would have been fun.
Yeah. And I think that the personal KPIs, that list of things that he said, doing all those things doesn't guarantee that you're going to get a promotion, but I would say that to get a promotion, those elements have to be in place in a merit-based system. So you better be doing it, or you're probably not going to have as good a chance of getting promoted. So with that, Brian, I'll say thank you for joining me on this episode. To our audience, we greatly appreciated you listening in on our conversation with Randy. Hopefully you learned something, and buy his book.
Yes.
Buy his book. And with that, I'll say thanks for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.